Alright, we're back here, back at it again with the updates as to what the Ottawa Senators are going to do at the 2020 NHL Entry Draft. Now, we've made our fair share of videos talking about the Sens and their overall situation, let's just say, heading into this year's entry draft, and for lack of a better term, it is enriching. 2 picks, 3rd and 5th overall. They have another pick that is yet to be determined that belongs to the New York Islanders that was acquired in the Jean-Gabriel Pageau trade. Because the New York Islanders are currently in their play-in series and they're going to either beat the Washington Capitals and go into the second round or lose to the Washington Capitals and remain in the 16 to 24 range or whatever it is. Their pick isn't actually determined yet, but at the same time, it's going to be one of those later picks. So, regardless, the Senators have 3 first-round picks this season, and they're in a position where many people are speculating as to whether or not they could actually trade up to first overall. Now, this isn't something that's new. People have been speculating if the Senators could even win the first overall pick because they had 2 of the 3 top picks in the lottery in regards to the first overall odds. Of course, we know they didn't win because a play-in series pick eventually won, and during the second draft lottery, that team was revealed to be the New York Rangers. But because they have 3 and 5 now, there's always been this idea that, hey, maybe they could make a trade number 3 and number 5 for number 1, or maybe they could just trade number 3 and another prospect or a lower pick for number 1. It really depends. But we have ourselves the weirdest of sources coming out and giving us apparent confirmation as to what's going to happen. It's an article over here on the Ottawa Sun from August 17th, so apologies if this is too old for your tastes. It's written by Bruce Garrioch, and it quotes that the Ottawa Senators will not be moving their number 3rd and number 5 picks. Okay, cool. That's the title of the article. What exactly is the source here? Well, the source is Eugene Melnyk. This is the quote over here. The idea of trading our 3rd and 5th overall picks for number 1 is nonsensical, Eugene Melnyk said in an email to Post Media on Monday. We're very excited to welcome our many new Ottawa Senators that will come to us via the upcoming draft. Now, I get that it's literally the head of the entire team saying, yeah, no, we're not going to do that. What are you, nuts? Trade 5 and 3 for number 1? That's crazy. But I will say that there is indeed a little bit of a weird feeling inside me when I read this. First off, a few months ago, back after the first draft lottery, we had ourselves a little bit of a comment from Pierre Dorion that was in Elliotte Friedman's 31 Thoughts. Read thought number 13 from the 31 Thoughts article published on June 27. It reads this: more post-lottery stuff. Good questions from the audience during our live Ask 31 with Ottawa GM Pierre Dorion. Would he consider trading down from 3 and or 5? It would be very difficult to do something like that. We would have to be a special player coming our way. He did add that a GM listens to everything and didn't poo-poo Jeff Merrick's query about drafting a goalie in a high spot. One viewer asked if he would offer 3 and 5 for number 1, to which Dorion smiled and said no comment. So, I'm not going to say that what Elliotte Friedman published is right and that what Bruce Garrioch is publishing is wrong, or whatever. This is just me using these 2 articles because the quotes in both of them kind of depict the argument that I want to say here. A GM listens to everything. And that's what Pierre Dorion is coming out and saying to the media, that even if things may seem crazy, even if a trade offer or a proposal may seem kind of whack, a GM's got the phones open, he's thinking about it, he's got to internalize the idea, just because that's his job, you know? And the job of the owner, the president, the head of hockey operations, that's not that. You see, listening to the phones and talking to other GMs, that's the GM's job, not the chairman's. So, in my own personal opinion, it's weird that Eugene Melnyk is the guy coming out and telling the media that they wouldn't even think about the idea because it's quote-unquote nonsensical. It just goes against my own personal philosophy as to what a general manager does in the NHL versus what an owner or a chairman does, and how those 2 different identities overlap. The point that I'm trying to make here is not that I believe the Ottawa Senators are going to trade 3 and 5 for 1. It's mostly just I don't really personally feel that Melnyk is the right guy to make that call. Since, he's not the guy making trades, he's just watching the guy making trades. And furthermore, when it comes to the whole 3 and 5 for 1 argument, you could debate whether or not that's even something that's valuable. I saw this tweet over here on Twitter that I think opens my eyes to what could be probably the biggest argument that we're all missing over here when it comes to 1st overall, 3rd overall, and 5th overall. It comes from a user named Nate at NKB121. Forgive the blank Excel screenshot, but I thought this was interesting. How many times since the 2004 lockout would you prefer to have 3 and 5 instead of 1st? I count 5 out of 20. Pick value dictates that you hold on to 3 and 5, but man, this made me think about it a little bit. And this, in theory, is true. Picks number 3 and 5, especially in this year's draft, should, in theory, be more valuable than pick number 1, because 2 very, very good players is more valuable overall than 1 franchise player. If you add up the values and you dictate how much 1 could be worth to a team, adding them together kind of makes it out like that 3 and 5 would be more valuable than 1. But taking a look at who actually goes 3, 5, and 1 can maybe change your mind. Take a look at this. Out of all these years over here, how many years would you actually choose number 3 and number 5 instead of 1st? I'll tell you my answers over here. I'd select Heiskanen and Pettersson over Nico Hischier. I'd do that. I would personally select Leon Draisaitl and Michael Dal Colle over Aaron Ekblad, just because Leon Draisaitl is the best player out of the 3. I would personally select Galchenyuk and Morgan Rielly over Nail Yakupov. That's because the 2 guys other than Yakupov are in the NHL. Yakupov is not. I'd select Huberdeau and Strome over Nugent Hopkins because Huberdeau is a star, Strome became a star, Nugent Hopkins is somewhat similar to Strome in terms of production. And then I would also choose Phil Kessel and Jonathan Toews over Eric Johnson by a long shot. That's 5. From 2004 to 2019, that's 16 different draft classes, and only 5 of them are draft classes that, in my opinion, it would be better to have 3rd and 5th instead of 1st, just taking a look at the players that went in those spots. Now, will I discredit the idea that a Quinton Byfield at 3 and a Jamie Drysdale at 5 may sometime down the line be more valuable together than a Lafreniere by himself? Obviously, I don't want to do that, but historical record suggests that the Lafreniere pick may be more valuable than the 2 other guys, even though the potential for getting really, really good players still does exist at 3rd and 5th overall. Because everybody else on this list, I'd rather have Ovi than Barker and Wheeler, I'd rather have Crosby than Johnson and Price, I'd rather have Kane than Turris and Alzner, and you can go down the list and follow your way through. That's just kind of how it goes. So maybe, even if 3 and 5 would in theory be more valuable than 1st overall, maybe it would be in the Ottawa Senators' best interest to take a look at the idea of trading it anyway, especially since that's Pierre Dorian's call to make and not Eugene Melnyk's. Well, I guess if Pierre Dorian is in the process of doing something that Melnyk can come in and say, no, why are you doing that? I guess he has the ability to veto it and just tell him not to do it. But normally when the higher-ups step in and interfere with management and the overall GM's proceedings, it's normally thematic-based, isn't it? It's mostly like, okay, we want to rebuild, so we're going to get rid of all these older guys. Your job at the draft is to get more picks. Or, hey, we kind of want to be competitive. Your job at the draft is to trade all these picks we got, get us some good players. It never really is directly, hey, make this trade for this player, or make sure you don't trade this for this. It never really is that hands-on, in my opinion. And if I'm wrong, you can call me out in the comments, you can tell me that I'm wrong about that. But that's just kind of how I feel after watching hockey GMs do their thing year after year after year. It never really is like that, isn't it? And in fact, Eugene Melnyk is probably one of the more popular NHL franchise owners just because he's the one who's mostly in the spotlight and he's the most vocal about actually being a part of a hockey team. Most of the other owners, in my opinion, don't really have as much of an impact, I would say, than Eugene Melnyk does on his team. So maybe I guess he has the ability to veto it, but in my own personal opinion, it certainly may be something you have to take a look at just based off of historical records, even though systematically it would appear that 3 and 5 would be more valuable. So Again, this is a weird video, I know that, but talk to me in the comments below what you thought about this video. Would you take 1st overall or 3rd and 5th overall for this year? And furthermore, would you take 1st or 3rd and 5th for any of the other drafts we talked about? Because there seriously are only 5, in my opinion, where you could justify 3 and 5 being better than 1. But that's up for debate. So talk to me in the comments what you thought about this idea. I hope you enjoyed this video. And bye.